What's the big idea?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Episode number 53.
Ooh.
Yep. I guess we could celebrate.
Yeah.
This is
Officially
officially past a year of Volleybalogy. Thanks to everybody who's been, supporting us. And are you way off camera? I think you're way off camera. Do you think maybe? Do you want? No, this one.
Oh, is it way off?
It seems to be way. Yeah,
okay,
you're cut off too much.
Oh.
Let's just see. Could be I am thicker torsoed. Maybe I'm just a little more right there. That should be good.
Okay.
Yep. In case you're listening to this, we're adjusting the camera so Eric can be on camera. He's wearing a nice,
some technical issues.
Nice pink shirt today. I like that shirt.
Oh, thanks,
very flamingo.
Yeah.
I like it.
Flamingo.
Yeah. So this is over a year. So we want to say thanks to everybody who's listened and subscribed. Again, if you haven't subscribed, it really helps us if you go to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Even if you don't care about subscriptions, it just helps us. Our self-esteem is very much tied to the number of subscriptions we have. So if you don't subscribe, then we feel bad and we might quit. We might just quit. Like one day,
threaten them with.
We're going to quit if you don't like us or subscribe to us.
That's not very conducive to today's topic.
No, it's not. And that's why I did it on purpose, of course, to show people just how negative.
Known.
Yeah. We still want you to subscribe, but I did it on purpose because.
And thank you to
our sponsor.
No, I was going to say everyone who said that they are still here listening.
Right. Yes. If anybody is, we asked in the show for people to go to YouTube and comment on the video. If they're on Apple or Spotify or Amazon or whatever they're listening to us on, if they could go to YouTube and leave a comment just to let us know that you're still listening to the end of the episode. Yeah. And we had actually a couple people, and we thank you very much for the people listening. We thank you very much.
Yeah.
They went to YouTube and said, I just came here to say I'm still here or I'm here.
Way more than I expected.
Yeah.
Like zero.
I think it's two people. Yeah. Twice as I think
it was three.
Maybe three. Yeah. Anyway, we're very grateful. And we're hoping that, now that we're saying it earlier in this episode, maybe we'll get more like, I'm here. They can pretend they're listening to the end. We won't know.
That's true. Because,
that time we said it at the end, but now if we say it at the beginning, maybe the numbers are going to be through the roof. Like we could get up into the double digits maybe. Whoa, that would be. So all you have to do is go to YouTube and you say, I'm still here. Or I'm here. Not I'm still here.
Just.
I don't know. I'm still here. Isn't that a movie? Anyway.
So and then
last summer? I know what you did. Yeah, just go type.
I know what you did last episode.
Just go type. I know what you did last summer, or Scream 3. No, and then we'll know you're listening. But anyway, that's enough. That's enough. That's a heck of a preamble.
Wow.
Today's episode is called "Creating Team Culture."
Yeah.
Right. And this is, players, coaches, and parents can listen to this because. The idea is, there's a lot of teams out there, I think, that get away from coaches, and the coach doesn't know how to reel them back in. I actually saw some posts about that today on social media. And then there's also like parents who have to deal with this issue of like a, positive team culture. Can parents contribute to a team culture? Can players contribute? Obviously, players can contribute to a team culture. So we're hoping that all of our audience can listen. All of our friends and relatives who listen to the show can really help chip in and fix team culture.
You must have a big family then.
I'm brown, so as you know, those. Anyway, I won't say. I can't get too racist, even against myself, because people listening on the radio.
I don't want to get too racist.
Yeah. Can one be too? No. Just so everybody, if you're listening to us and you've never seen us, I am brown, so I can say these things. But racism, of course, knows no color. Right? Anybody can be racist. Right? People forget that, I can be just as racist as the next guy. Anyway, this is a bad topic. Anyway, so how do we cultivate? Eric, early thoughts? Are you talking coach, player, parent? Who do you want to talk to first?
Everyone, I guess. The first.
Everyone.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'm thinking of, just kind of based on our conversation of a different topic before we got going here, was just like the idea of growth. For growth is just going to lead to happiness and fulfillment and probably satisfaction, or probably the big word would be fulfillment. And I think that's probably.
Can you hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear that noise?
No.
Oh, okay. I was undoing my zipper
Oh.
on my hoodie.
Wow.
No,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't have. Anyway,
Jeez.
if you heard that, that was my hoodie zipper.
See, and I use the
Not-
word growth, and then you're talking about that. That's just really not.
Well, it's just room to grow. Anyway, sorry.
Wow.
Hoodie zipper.
You need to go get a coffee. I think,
I'm
and
not
then
even
just
wearing
let
any
me-
pants, so it couldn't be inappropriate.
I wouldn't know.
So
I can't
I know.
see.
I know. Okay.
Yeah, growth. I think growth is important. So
Yes.
I'm talking like obviously skill wise, and then I think just as an athlete, like going through tough things and then getting through them, and then like not being judged. That leads into like another thing I was thinking of, which is, well, yeah, the element of doing tough things, and then for the coach to kind of cultivate that, you want to do a few. I guess the one big thing is that I was just thinking this is like non-favoritism, kind of trying to treat each athlete as fair as possible, and like trying to care for all of them. I know it's hard sometimes as a coach. Like sometimes you just naturally gravitate your attention to a few particular athletes, or maybe you have an athlete who's very like reticent or like doesn't want too much attention. It just naturally happens that way. But letting if the athletes go through things and they get better, they do tough things, they do like they're even doing training, right? It's funny how just like doing something like exercise and then sport, which obviously exercise helps sport, it just stay in the sport in a good way, in a welcoming environment, and you will almost in a way automatically create a good atmosphere. I'm stuttering a little bit.
Yeah, and you're kind of like all over the place.
Yeah, sorry. I know. Main thing was growth.
So how does a player grow? Like what? So you mean the growth of the player? If that's there, then that's how you create positive
well, the
culture?
first fundamental thing is just their ability as a volleyball player, I would think.
Like in terms of it needs to get better, like, or
yeah, I would think the growth of their skills,
Mhm.
and then maybe their like power and speed is getting better. They're jumping higher.
okay. So if a player's noticing growth in
Yes.
themselves,
yes,
and if they're learning, is that what you're getting at? Then
Yeah.
they will learn. That's 100%. Like, so if the coach has merit and skill level, and the players are seeing improvement, that really helps team culture in a big way.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would think
100%. Yeah, because they're seeing the rewards, and
Yeah.
they're seeing there's a common sense, and there's a logic, and there's a caring person who's actually helping them improve. Because what happens in the opposite scenario, where a coach, like you've had this, I've had this, where a coach might be giving advice that doesn't work in reality, but they're just saying something they saw online or they heard someone else saying.
And you want to keep playing the sport, and you know you're going to have to bear with them for the entire season because you love the sport of volleyball, and they are what they are. They're a factor that you can't really control, and you don't want to say muddy the or stir the pot by getting into that with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get this whole culture where the team, the players, are sort of talking behind their backs about the coach, and
Everyone
they're
knows,
like, they go back to the change room and they're like, "Did you see what he or she said today?" And then it's
yes,
like,
then it's just gonna,
and then it becomes this weird thing, and then they look at each other when you're talking, and they're rolling their eyes a bit, and then the coach feels that they've lost them, but they don't know that it's because what they're telling them is wrong. I mean, I think every parent listening right now has probably had a scenario where their kids know more than their coach. Again, there's a lot of good coaches out there, but again, the good coaches don't necessarily know what other coaches are out there. And there's a lot of times where just the players know that what the coach is telling them. Like my daughter's scenario of like coaches telling them to all serve less aggressively as a team was like the whole team checked out. Like, what are you talking about? We're like 17-year-old girls here, and you're telling us to serve less aggressively? Like, it's a very weird thing to say.
What do you like? The other thing that really scares me about that is, when they go back to the team room and then one person kind of mentions it, is that you could have an athlete who's generally not have the tendency to somewhat talk negatively of other, but now you're creating this environment is now created where you can kind of openly talk trash about the coach, and like that's not a good habit you want to start forming, right?
Yeah. And it's horrible because like the players can't just like, it's also then it turns into the emperor has no clothes. Like you can't like you don't want an environment where players can't talk about it.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like it's such a weird thing. Like we're all supposed to be living the lie, and
Well,
these seasons are long.
We want them to speak in some form of like stoic way that Marcus Aurelius would know about, but we're talking young athletes here, and like even though like they're not that type of person, like they don't know that they may not be thinking, oh, the coach is out of our control, we just need to like
They won't have these composed thoughts.
like I mean some might, but like more,
but even for
more so as an
anybody,
adult.
but even as an adult, don't you think like it's impossible? Like if you're
is,
going to let's any other aspect in the world. So if I go somewhere, right? Let's suppose I sign up for an art class, okay? And the person teaching the art class starts telling me stuff like, paint by numbers type of stuff, or like stuff that I know, even in my limited knowledge, isn't really right or proper.
Like connect the dot art class?
Yeah, like well, let's suppose they didn't know their stuff, and
Yeah.
it became obvious that they connect the dots, or like paint by numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
And it became obvious that this person was not knowledgeable. I can be as stoic as I want to, but I'm like, and there's time that is being paid, there's money that's being paid.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to remain you can be respectful. You can say to yourself, I'll use this as an exercise in patience.
We're getting into a really specific situation here with this, eh?
Well, it's basically, I don't mean the paint by numbers, but
no, but I mean the coach where the athletes know more. This, because really should the athletes speak up? I tried doing that once. Didn't work out very well. It was a varsity program. It really backfired.
Yes.
I was captain, and
I don't know any athlete where it did work out well because, but that's not because the athlete was wrong. It's because the coach was so insecure. Like, when you're someone in any situation who doesn't know what they're doing, really, the tendency is like, that, so you try to portray a certain image, and the minute someone calls you out on it, you're gonna lash out. You
would think I would have had some backlash, but nothing came of it. It's
well,
just the fact that nothing came of it is why it was such a failure.
Yeah, that's true too. And you didn't, but it was almost, in your case, it was almost like like the coach really didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of acted like it never happened.
And the athletic director was like, well, you guys are winning, so it's working.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
But you were winning in a division that was sort of like, I like to call that fool's gold, right? Where it was not in a very easy division. And then, as usual, you guys got creamed because you didn't have the coaching.
I guess, conference.
Yeah. Your conference was easier. And then you guys got creamed in a year probably where you should have put up a better fight against them, but that's where the coaching.
That team
was good.
Could have been second or first.
Yeah, and
should have been.
But the coaching, that's where the coaching and knowledge really comes through in those close matches against great teams. It's like a few points here or there.
And I can't really blame the coach either, because that was a new experience for them.
But it was interesting. It was interesting, right? Because I remember that year, and that's sort of what I want to get to that second point, because your team also had a bit of a toxic culture among the teammates. And my point, and you sort of hinted at this too, the number one thing I think right off the bat, like if for any coach listening to this, and any parents and players, you'll know that this is true. If a coach has different rules for different players, then that's the number one reason why teams start infighting, and they get like toxic backbiting and players not liking each other, resenting each other. So if you are a coach, just be very careful, because I saw a post today on Facebook that said a coach was talking about how his teams got this sort of negative attitude and a lot of like infighting on the team. And I'll never listen to what they said in their post. They said, our team isn't very deep, so benching players isn't an option. Benching starters isn't an option. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right?
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Well, that's a foul right there. Like, you're already you're breaking like a coaching rule, because that's where you can utilize the power of benching someone as a way of following the rule. It's a policy, it's a discipline. It's because that's the thing. You have to go through tough things together, which sport is, but you all have to do it by playing by the same rules.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's always going to be hard. So there's always going to be a tendency to try to bend the rules, to show up late, to not go to training, to not to get behind on your grades, right?
Test the boundaries.
Yeah.
That's what kids do. And like, so that coach broke the rule of like, no, if you bench the players that are the problem, because your goal as a coach is to teach them about life. You're supposed to sacrifice the wins in youth volleyball for life lessons. Yeah. Right? You want these kids, because all you're teaching them is that, oh, okay, if you're an a-hole or you're a jerk, that's okay.
Yeah.
As long, because we have really bad players on the bench. No, the whole lesson is, wow, you're a jerk in life and you need to not be a jerk in life.
I bet you that coach was afraid to bench them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was such a weird thing because they were like coming to social media for help. And yet they threw that line in there, and I think I responded and I said, like, you're kind of like, you got to teach these kids about life, not sport, and the fact that you're not willing to sacrifice the loss for personality issues is a problem. Like that's explains exactly why. So that's the point for me, is that coaches who do that stuff, who don't understand what youth sports is about, they create toxic teams. I've seen coaches do this where, like, player misses a bunch of practices going into a big tournament, and this is beyond the fair play rule that you can bench anybody you want. And then that player starts the big tournament, and the rest of the kids on the bench who are almost equal in skill, not just coach's favorite, right? Or maybe even better, honestly, sat on the bench to start. And you should have seen their faces on the bench. Yeah. I was watching them and I was like, you just lost your whole team. Yeah. You just lost your whole team. And I remember there was another situation where a coach came to me and asked me, this player missed all our morning practices coming into this last game to move on in the playoffs. This is like a multi-day playoff thing. Do you think I should bench them? And I said, well, listen, I know you want to win, and I know it's high school or whatever, but I think you have to send a message to your teammates that this is unacceptable. Morning practices, she could have been there. She wasn't sick. There was no other excuse. Just she didn't want to wake up. I said I would bench her at least the first few points just to send a message. If you feel like the backup is not, personally, I would have not played the player in the first set. Maybe not even in the second. Like I want to teach the students about hard work, discipline, who's here. And I, in fairness, honestly, I didn't think the backup player who was on the bench was much worse than this player. And I think it also does something for team morale too, right? When you're like, okay, yeah, we showed up. The kids that woke up at 6 a.m. to get to practice, you're kind of sending a good message to them too. But she said, okay, I'm going to ask the players. And I was like, are you going to ask the players? You're going to ask the children what they should do? Yeah. Like the kids who would want to play on the highway if you let them?
You're supposed to lead them. Yeah.
Yeah. So then she asked the players, and of course they're like, no, we want to win. We want to win. Yeah, we want to win. Of course. And then they went out there, and you know what? They played the worst they played all year. And they didn't have a bench to go to because the kid that got benched who showed up for repractice, when they came in, they were like,
such a missed opportunity,
checked out. All the kids that woke up early, showed up to practice, they checked out, lost the team. Whereas if you do it the other way, you tell everybody. And again, it can't just happen in the final playoff game. It should be happening from day one. Yeah. Right? From that first time that player missed practice, or or like with unexplained. Obviously, coaches need to have hearts when people really miss for real reasons. But if it's just like, I don't want to get up early, that's when you got to stamp that behavior out.
And that, again, another opportunity in a negative way, where you're creating this scenario where they can start to talk negatively, and then if that keeps happening, again, you can have an athlete like these are kids, they're unformed in some way, right? That's the purpose of us as coaches or as teachers, to show them. But now it's like it's almost like, what they say about like German Shepherds or any of those really high functioning like dog breeds. You have to teach them stuff. You have to really stimulate their mind. Otherwise they go neurotic. They go kind of crazy. Yeah. It's like this. If you're just like giving them a really crappy environment, and you're showing them that their hard work doesn't matter or whatever, they're going to start talking negatively. That's it. And just like any habit, if it happens once and then it happens again, it's going to start to form. And like, you can have kids who are generally great kids all of a sudden start to think negatively and put a negative aspect on team sports. And then this whole negative connection on what hard work and doing something difficult can, the benefit of that together. And now they're going to be discouraged and walk away from it. So
100%. Yeah. I think that like the coach that sort of acts like, I mean, I don't know if anybody knows who Atticus Finch is or remembers like To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch in that book always does the right thing. you know? And I think that's an interesting thing. So a coach is like,
It's fiction though, right?
it's fiction based on a true story, So like if you are a person who lives with a high ethical standard as a coach, you know what the right thing to do is. I think most people do, but I think they get caught up in thinking they're a pro coach, like we talked about in other episodes, thinking about wins. They think that they're doing the right thing by letting the rule-breaking great player play the important game, when really, just like in life, we say this all the time, eh? How often is the easy thing the right thing? The harder thing, generally speaking, is the right thing. You know, and in this case, the harder thing for a coach to do is to take the L or even give up the big lead by benching the player that has broken the rules or, you know, consistently broken the rules, even if they're high skilled. And what that does is you might have that one player pissed off at you, but you'll have 11 other players or however many players on your roster that will then go through a brick wall for you. And even if that kid is, so let's suppose the offending player, great player, is pissed off at you for what you did, then that tells you they don't have what it takes anyway.
But also, it may be the best thing that happened to them.
Yes. So if they agree with, like, so it depends on how they handle that, right?
They could be mad initially.
Yes.
But then stick with it, stay on the team, and then you'll respect that. I'm sure later on that will be paid forward to them as long as they're able to stay welcome on the team.
Yeah, and so that's what I was going to say. How that if a player disagrees with you and never comes around and still thinks you're a jerk for doing the right thing, then that's a player who doesn't have it.
Yeah.
If though the other side of it is that some players learn through that behavior and they're like, oh wow, that kid's getting more time than me because they show up, because they're on time, because they don't give attitude to the refs or coaches when it's not warranted. They might start to get dragged by the group into a more positive light. And that's where you've become a teacher now, not just a coach. And that's, I think that's the number one thing is a coach that is just like, here are the rules. And we talked about this in an episode, like a great way for a coach to do this so they don't feel like they're the one doing it is, you know, sit down with your team at the start of the year, write down a list of team rules and come up with it as a team and team consequences. And then when everybody's there, they all know the right things to say. They're all going to say like, yeah, we shouldn't be late for practice. Yeah, we shouldn't miss practice. Yeah, we should. Here's the consequence. They'll all say the right things because everybody knows these things. And then when it happens, you can now rely on that sheet that we all drew together. We all have pictures of it in our phones, whatever. Then you can rely on the sheet and the rules that we came up with together, not you, the coach. If you are one of those coaches who's a little bit afraid to lay down the law, it's a great way to have the team or the rules lay down the law.
I like because in that example, we're starting to see that there is a separation between the coach and the team and the shared outcomes. Because it's the coach, it's not again, if they're taking the result of their team too much on them, like they care about too much about the wins. It's the wins for the team and the athletes. The coach is there to be the teacher and the guide. So that coach letting that player play, the one who's now showed up late, that means that they are now they're caring too much about the result or whatever. And the result is completely on the shoulders of the athletes. In the games, I would think. Like the coach is there to teach them in practice, but once I think the point I'm trying to make is that they needed to then, bench that player for the first set or whatever, and then just play, because it really shows that the team will now get the message that the outcome is totally on us. And you, the player who's late, you are one of us, and you've now put us in this situation. We now have to step up, right? It's really not about the coach at all.
Yes.
But them allowing that player to play, they're now mixing themselves in the pot as one of the players almost. I get that feeling, you know what I mean?
Yes. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and that's the lesson. You're right. I think that's another good way to frame it. What was every coach should think about the message they're sending the other players.
Because it could really fire up some of the other players.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, give them an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times. I said this to a friend the other day. I was like,
I've benefited from that before.
Yeah. And I've coached teams where a player that I put in shocked me in the game. And then the player that I thought was the player that was underperformed. And I don't know. I remember seeing that. And I think I wasn't that player necessarily, but I did raise my game in a game. and I know that I played better in games
Yeah.
than in warm-ups and even practice. Like I could try to get, but as a shorter guy, I needed to get pumped up about a blocker or something to jump as high as I could. And so, but I didn't carry that with me into coaching as much as I remember literally having players who were like, wow, that player is way better in the game than I thought they would. And I was flexible enough to change things when needed. And I think a lot of coaches don't give themselves an opportunity to let those kids shine, either through a disciplinary act or whatever. Just
It is a missed opportunity because that's going to happen. Then it's
yeah. And I think so maybe that's another point I had that ties that. So that's really important. So consistent rules across the team. Number one reason why toxic cultures develop is a coach who breaks the rules for certain players and not for others. You even see this all the way up in pro sports, right? You see some coaches that are buddies
well, if we're going to
with
talk
certain
about
players.
if we're going to talk about great players, like, do you think Jordan and all these other guys were late to practice? I highly doubt it.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like those guys, like those superstar team leaders, it's cool if they're hard on their teammates as long as they're hard on themselves.
Yeah.
All right. You can't just be hard on, like, I'll be honest with you, like in a business sense, like what we were talking about before the show, right? Like, I think that I might be high expectation guy to work with, as a business owner, but I do put it on myself too. That's the one, like nobody can look at me and say like, oh, he's not busting his ass, so I think I'm okay to expect that from people. I know they're not going to care as much as me, obviously, but I try to put them in situations where they feel entrepreneurial or they have, maybe an entrepreneurial angle like we talked about, or an opportunity to be entrepreneurial on their own. Like I love to foster that. So I think that, it's in the same.
And if you didn't, and if the players were thinking of these pros on whatever basketball or whatever, they wouldn't actually exist in that capacity. They wouldn't be a pro at that high level if they weren't actually putting their feet before their words.
Yeah, it's interesting, because like, you know what, I was thinking about that during The Last Dance and watching Michael Jordan talk about other teammates. And you know what, it's interesting to me is that every athlete that he was crapping on or criticizing, think about it, they made it to the NBA. So they were elite hard workers who had all the right tools, but then there was this other level, right? And so what I compare that situation to, I remember like talking about this with someone a while ago, and I was thinking, they're almost like they're all entrepreneurs in the NBA, or let's say, or NHL, or any pro athlete. And you're all business owners, let's say. And then there's one business owner who is like, now you're working on a group business together, right? Because you each independently are great, right? Yeah. But now you're in this group business that you've signed up for. And someone is like, whoa, your definition of hard work isn't right.
Isn't the same as
you've
mine.
You've made it to a very high level. Yeah. But you're letting me down now. Like, you know what I mean? Now there's a team here aspect, and you're not pulling your weight. As one of the high achievers, it's fascinating, that even in like a stratosphere or strata, a level of greatness, levels, in there's this other like, what are you doing? Like, you're letting us down. And all these people, probably their whole lives, they probably weren't used to hearing that. Yeah. Right. Because they were the stars wherever they were. So it's fascinating, because I think that can happen. Like, my theory is like, too, like, going off the top, you said the thing about skill level and the players developing. I do find that coaches, they always put this hard work and dedication thing and coachable stuff on the players. But I think coaches should put that same level of, criteria on themselves. Are you as a coach coachable? Are you as a coach doing all you can to get better? Because so many times they talk about, players don't work hard enough. Players aren't coachable. And I'm looking at the coach. I'm like, when's the last time you opened up a YouTube video? Or when's the last time you opened up a coaching book? When's the last time you went to go watch a great coach? Like, you know how easy that would be to go watch a local coach that you know to be high level, or a varsity coach or post-secondary coach that you know. You know how easy it would be to like show up at a practice and watch them? Like, nothing.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, I was gonna say. I hope you're just talking about practice, because at a game, you're not gonna see much.
Yeah. But even at a game, like I see coaches that don't even look at systems. Like, they don't even know where defensive players are supposed to be on the court, because they don't even put on a YouTube video to see what a coach is doing. Like, to me, I just think that's a no-brainer. That you would say. Like, that's how I find out. Like, I stay on top of trends in volleyball by watching online. Oh, wow, look what they're doing now. Or like, I actually answered a question about the right sides, because some parent was asking about how their old team, their right side player, used to be the backup setter or the alternate setter. And now this team that they're on, the coach is like, no, we never have the right side serve a second setter. So I wrote a little post about how when the libero came into the game, that sort of is the right side. The right side became sort of obsolete as the backup setter. Libero became secondary setter, and some teams even use the middle now, right? And so I put down the years when that all changed, and that when the libero came, then the right side hitter became. That's when the right side hitters became the banger. Yeah, they became elevated as these hitters, so they were too valuable to be second setter. And people don't know that stuff, and it's like that's the type of stuff that a coach might not even know, right? Like if you're not keeping up with volleyball, like that team, that the coach that she had now was accurate about we don't have a right side set, but the coach the year before always had the right side set, and that's obsolete. That idea is gone now. It should be anyway. So, that's just like a coach who's not doing their due diligence. It's not doing their job. Even just putting on a YouTube video to see, some teams are letting the middle set in, U.S. college volleyball now. Yeah,
like watching, but also being skeptical and just using your own brain to kind of differentiate things and like actually go through and imagine, is this legitimate? Is there good reason behind this? Like, can I actually, and then... Yeah, like we do this all the time with fitness and
like you don't want to be a parent. You don't want to be too vulnerable to everything, but putting on a great team that is great. Let's say U.S. college ball, right?
Yeah,
and then
exactly,
and then like looking at their system and saying that's got to be it's got to have some merit.
That's probably Well, what about that game that?
The Wisconsin game. Yes, we didn't talk about that.
Crazy, eh?
Unbelievable. That's what I wanted to do in the top. Maybe that was going to be a topic I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But if you don't I think everybody heard by now, 92,000 people for an outdoor sporting event. It was indoor volleyball in a giant stadium, largest women's sporting event ever. That just happened this past week. In case you're watching this years in the future, but this is 2023.
Yeah.
And
this is August.
Yeah.
August.
End of August.
Yeah. End of August.
And no, but it was such a cool thing, and like I wanted to do a topic, and we should do a topic about like, is women's volleyball the future of like, like a real
sport in general?
Yeah, like just in terms of like, is it going to be the forerunner in like equality in sports? Because volleyball, women's indoor and beach volleyball seem to be the team sport, at least team sport, that is really like on par with the male side. Like, you can argue the male side is harder hits and more exciting bangs and, plays. But there's something about the female game that's very fun to watch because the rallies do last longer.
Yeah.
And there is, fundamentally and technically some really cool things to watch that the viewer can, like a male volleyball viewer who's like played male volleyball his whole life, can watch the women's game with an equal amount of interest.
Man, those long rallies you can't not watch them because it's just like the digs and like.
And the women scrambles are still cranking it
and
on their net.
And then they have to keep going. You have to be that physical, jumping, diving, and keep going until someone gets the point, right?
Yeah.
So.
And like on the beach, it's the same. Like you can watch a women. Like I can watch. Like I was a male player. Like I had 2 daughters, so I started watching more women's volleyball. Just obviously them playing, and then we'd watch it together on TV or YouTube. And it's like it's exciting. And now I find myself watching women's volleyball almost more than the men's side because that's where my daughters want to be, kind of thing, right? And it's just there's no drop off in excitement. So I think we should do a show on that about how female tennis is the other one that gets a lot of because you can watch women's tennis. It's funny how tennis and volleyball seem to connect in ways, but those are the two where you can't say that there's a like, in hockey the argument is that it's not as hard hitting, as fast. In basketball, some people say, there's not as many dunks in women's volleyball or basketball. But in volleyball and tennis, there's like a real parity, I think, between the two. And even maybe more like sponsorship money in the female side of things. And hopefully for the right reasons, right?
Wasn't the highest paid volleyball athlete in the world a female?
Yes.
Chinese athlete?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. So it's pretty cool stuff. But anyway,
that's for episode 54.
Yeah. I think so. But I was going to say, going back to this, like one of the things that sort of ties in with that consistent rules is I think another toxic trait that I see at the club level a lot and in high school is when a coach puts a player in a box and doesn't
Yep.
let them out when
Yeah.
their play dictates. So
Absolutely.
too many coaches, they put kids in boxes very early in their volleyball career, and then even when the kid has changed and has improved and strengthened, and I know there's parents listening to this nodding their heads, the coach doesn't see it, and the coach still goes back to the same other person even though their team has changed. So I think if I were to label this one, it would be like a lack of flexibility in the coaches, what the coach is seeing, or locking players in a basket or a box. So coaches, if you're listening to this and you want to make sure your team doesn't lose its positive culture, being flexible to what kids are actually doing and letting every practice be an opportunity for kids to show you what they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of recently experienced that actually at a club practice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you went. Yes, you went one.
Yeah.
That's right.
The first thing I hear out of like the coach, he's just talking to me about all the athletes, and then he's just kind of describing them as as good or not good.
Oh,
and like,
boy.
we don't know, like this one's a bit of a head case. And I'm like,
What age group was this?
it was 16U, 16, 17U, 17U. But some of them were like 15, 16.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 15, 16-year-old
Yeah.
boys, right?
Boys, yeah.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of weird hearing. I'm like, well, like you heard he's their head case, or like where do you get this from, or like you don't know, maybe like who told you this?
Yeah,
like,
and this is like early season here, right?
well, yeah, this is
Tryouts?
it's all preseason stuff,
Right.
So, I think it's one thing to kind of have an assessment of their skill level, right? But then, like you said, each practice and game, you need to kind of reset that and give them just like a clean slate, a clean look. Like you don't want to be carrying these things over, because that's how the box gets formed, right? So, yeah, I think, I don't know.
Just being open and like not, again, as humans, we like to put things in categories, right? That's what we do to simplify our lives in a universe that's, too big for us to handle. We like to put things in categories. We were sort of talking about that before the show.
I think we can't help it, right? Like
we run to security. So if it's funny, I did as a teacher, right? That was my other life as a teacher. And how many times teachers would come up to you and talk to you about, oh, you have this kid in your class, oh, they're this, they're that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'll wait and see. Like, I don't know, maybe they're that way with you, but they won't be that way with me.
Or it's like you with a new idea, or you go to talk to your friends, or maybe it's a business idea, and they all just want to be like, oh, you can't do that, like that's not gonna work well, or blah blah. They're just
a podcast about volleyball.
Yeah, what? Who's gonna listen to that?
Yeah. Apparently 740 people. At least they subscribe.
Which our happiness depends on.
Yeah. So just tell us you're here. Please. No, yeah, it's sorry. Did I cut you off?
No, just the idea of putting someone in a box. I think we can't help it as people, but I think that's one of your duties as a coach or as a teacher, is to always kind of reset that every time you're working with them. Don't go in already having an assumption on them.
Yeah.
I've had difficult kids to coach for sure, and then I go home like the next day, and even when it's leading up to the next practice, I'm just sitting and thinking ways like, how can I get them? Because I'm having a tough time with them trying to understand a certain technical movement, or like, so, and I'm just like, are they like more of a visual learner, or do I need to try something more kinesthetic? Like, can I do this? And then just talking with the funny thing is because it was on my mind so much, like I ended up talking to other fellow players, former varsity players. And then one of them told me this cool thing that her coach happened to show her. I'm like, oh, that's such a great idea. It was like, getting in that kind of bad posture for your forearm pass. Is the idea of her coach had her imagine, or like literally wear a lanyard, and it's like, if the lanyard hits your chest, then you're gonna run lines. So always stay in that. She was a libero, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
Down, low, forward, hunch position.
That's
especially
great.
You're pretty much always gonna see a libero like that, actually.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so the fact it was on my mind, I guess this is the due diligence, right? And this is me caring.
This is you caring, yes.
And I ended up talking to it because it was on my mind so much, and I heard this great thing. I was like, oh, it's such a great idea. And then I ended up having some good...
And it passed through your filter as a player.
Yeah.
You're like, yes, that is how they stand, right? Like if she said something where like, if she said like, tape their boards to like some coaches tape boards to forearms, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know if that,
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
kind of slave like.
Well, and who knows? Because certain kids, they may just need this extra, like not extra, but just a different angle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you explained it this way so many times. Try it from this way or try
Yeah.
it from this way. You don't know. It just works in different ways for us.
Yeah, I like that though, because that literally is the position that you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
All these years.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been thinking about it because all these last 2 months, I'm like, it's bad posture. You want to be,
Yes.
you want to have bad
Shoulders
posture,
rolled
upper,
forward. Yep.
right? And I think
My favorite one was, remember what mine is, like for the forearm pass anyway, was like, remember I heard the holding a dime or a quarter in your belly button,
Yeah.
that little tuck forward and then roll the shoulders forward and shoulders shrugged so you don't swing your arms too crazy, or you don't swing your arms much at all. And that was mine, but that lanyard one is even better because that forward leaning thing of a.
so. Yeah, even when the
barrel.
ball's on the other side of the net, they're just always tracking.
You're just still moving, tracking. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So we got not putting players in a box. That sort of ties in with the skill one again too, right? That's a good little piece where the coach is thinking and flexing and changing. I just see that all the time where like a coach just won't. Again, it's funny how much of this is on the coach. Maybe do you have any like related to like parents? How can parents contribute to team culture? Do you have any of that, or did you think of anything?
Well, I think being the parent where it's like, okay, do you want me to be the parent with criticism, or do you want me to be the dad, or do you want me to be the coach dad or coach mom? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then differentiating between the two. So
if you're qualified.
Yeah. Well, right. And I think a parent can, even if they don't play volleyball and they're, relatively self-aware, they can provide feedback on just like attitude. Mm-hmm. Like that's a very clear thing.
Yeah. Just as a person who's living in the world and
experience
and
then
hopefully.
The talks of accountability like you've had with your daughters, it's like if your child is like really, they finished practice or they come back from the tournament, they're just complaining. It's like, well, let's take a look. How much work have you been putting into this? Mm-hmm. Have you been working hard? Have you been doing little extra things outside of this? Have you been, what do we call it? Undeniable?
Yes.
Right. That's the conversation I think every parent can have, regardless of their playing the sport or not. Right. So I think it's
the only difference is like that's so parents like might have to step outside their skin on that one. Like it depends on what the parent's done in life.
It's
if the parent
difficult thing to do.
If the parent is good at recognizing their own accomplishments and what they took to get those things, whether it's a good marriage, a good job, a good business, whatever. So it's a tricky one because you almost have to be a high achieving parent, or at least
you have to be somewhat of a role model.
Not even high achieving maybe, but you have to recognize your own accomplishments because everybody has accomplishments, but they don't necessarily reflect on what got them those accomplishments.
The reason is because the consequence of this type of feedback is that it can push people away from you, right? But the thing is, if you are someone who is confident or somewhat of a high achiever, like your kids will naturally look to you no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the subconscious evaluates that. It's like, hey, if I give them this type of feedback, it'll push them away. I don't want to do this because I want them to love me forever type thing.
Yeah. You want to be their friend, or like you're just not good at understanding the path to high success. So you might not be able to see that issue of like, wow, you haven't done enough to be complaining. You know what I mean?
But again,
or
I think
are you
this
doing
is something
enough?
That we all know, whether we have achieved something super high or not, because I think we can all think the right thing, but it's a matter of actually doing it. I
think in that case, I don't know, because when it comes to work ethic and like earning the right to complain, I think our default is to go to the blame. I think our default is to go. It's easier to blame. And I think as society goes along, that's what we're all...
Well, for sure it's the easy thing.
Yeah.
But don't you think
that we deep down know what's wrong?
Know? Yeah.
I don't know. Well, because if you know...
I feel like whenever I do the blame thing, I immediately afterwards, I get this like...
But you're a little different though.
Pang, I'm like, this just feels wrong to
But I don't think you're the majority, right?
Right, but...
I think that you're special. I think you're special. And I think you're special. I think you're beautiful.
Wow.
On the inside.
Why are you wearing a hat today, huh?
Because I didn't shower for 4 days. No, I'm just kidding. Because I showered today. I don't know. I just want to wear it. It was US Open too. Yeah. A tennis hat.
Roger's not playing.
He's what? No, I just didn't want to wash. I didn't want to do my hair.
Oh, okay.
People have been asking for the hat. I got a message for a viewer who said they loved my
Where's
hat.
the RF hat? Yeah.
Yeah, they loved my hat. They liked it backwards, but maybe I'll do you like it more askew?
Well, I think I like it backwards. I think there's a certain.
There
fan
was
in
that. That's that
particular.
fan who
Yeah.
wrote in about the backward hat.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No one writes in about my backward hat.
no, that's true. I noticed that.
Are we avoiding this topic?
No,
This,
we're not. No, we're not. What? Oh, the parent. So what I was gonna say about the parent role in toxic team culture. So you said that in terms of like telling the player about hard work and about their role. Have they done enough? That sort of thing. Be undeniable. I think another thing a parent can do too is I think like we talked about this in another episode. How you cheer for the team and your player is very interesting because you can teach that player, your player, and maybe even help model for other parents the idea that how important is every point? You know, how important is every win? I see a lot of parents cheering over every point, and then when their team starts to suffer a bit, they go quiet. And then that's reinforcing.
It's such a crazy phenomenon.
It is,
right?
and then
It's
the kids think that that you love them more.
Like people
when they
listening,
get points.
if you think this is normal, it's not normal. Like,
yeah,
it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, it should be like. I like the polite clap or whatever, or cheer is fine. But some parents go crazy.
But your emotional state does not depend on the outcome of your kid's game.
Yeah, your self-esteem does not. Like, yes, we live through our.
I mean,
children.
maybe emotional state. Like,
your children are a reflection of
like,
you.
You should feel happy for them and stuff. But like,
yeah. But your sense of self should not hinge on whether your child is a success or failure at volleyball. Your joy in watching your child play should be them going through the process of, there's some friends on the team that are becoming jerks. Oh, they're losing today. Oh, they're winning today. Or they never win.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
But there's character. There's character building coming through the experience, right? Why are you laughing?
If we can change it, like the kid is volleyball isn't who I am. It's something I do.
Yeah,
the parent can say, my kid's sporting life is not who I am. It's something I do. Or
I think the idea is that
it's the same rule though.
Yeah, the idea you just don't. Your child's success in volleyball does not define your life, adult parent. You know what I mean? Like you. Again, this goes back to a whole bunch of things. I think if a parent wants to promote positive team culture, then the best thing they can do is work on their own self-esteem. You know, you are incapable of serving others until you work on yourself, right? Like you have nothing to give until you get this in order. So as a parent, if you develop self-esteem through exercise, high achieving, painting, cooking, whatever you want to do that gives you a sense of accomplishment, do that. And I think you're ready to be a sport parent even more, because now you're like, oh, this is just a vehicle through which my kid is learning, right? Volleyball just happens to be the vehicle that my kid is learning about life, right? Like you could take them off that volleyball court, pluck them down in a painting class, pluck them down in the dodgeball league, put them in a workplace. The volleyball is just the vehicle, and the points are just part of that. And hopefully you see the points and the wins as a metaphor, or not even the points and the wins, the development of your child in the game as a metaphor for what they're learning about hard work, tenacity, right? So I think
it's really what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause we talked about this in an episode where if you are hung up on the result or the point, or even how that rally goes, there's so many things outside of your control in that rally that you better just hinge it on, like, what have I done to get to this point? And what am I doing to I think I lost my train of thought. No, what am I doing? What am I doing to get to this point? And regardless of what happens in this moment, what's my preparation like? That's it. Like I saw this great quote, this great interview with Kobe Bryant recently, and it said they asked him, "Are you? What do you hate? What more defines you? Do you hate losing or do you love winning?" And he said, "Neither. I don't even think about those things. I just think about that moment and what I'm doing in that moment, in that second, and not even like if I win or lose that moment. It's like every moment is a test of what I've done to that point." And I totally get that, because I don't even think about, like, in my, like, I don't think about winning and losing. I don't even think of losing as a failure. And I sort of struggle to communicate this with people around me in business too, like where they're like, oh, are we losing money on this? Or are we, oh, we're not. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're running more than ever before. I don't care if we've lost money on individual things.
Because
it's a mindset.
You both are talking about self-competition. You're now switched into competing against yourself instead of, it doesn't matter who you're across the court from or who you are in the economy amongst your other competitors, right?
Yeah.
Because you know, like what you're just competing against yourself. I think that's what I kind of get out of that from Kobe, because
and you're just like, you're not defining it even in traditional, like everybody else defines things by like, you know, wins, losses, dollars, profits and losses.
Absolute, yeah.
Or just something that's very non-process based. It's results based.
Yeah.
And I think if you're truly results, and we talked about this with like, remember thinking about how my past goes versus like, no, maybe thinking more about, is my platform headed in the right direction, not where the ball even, you know what I mean? I think it's more of a process-based obsession that you're not even thinking on the same level as other people go, oh, wow, you lost a lot of money on that. And I'm like, no, I don't, it's all steps towards something else.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just see it as like, so I was talking with someone today about like tournaments, right? And we're like, oh man, we had a rough summer with tournaments. I'm like, well, we ran like 10 of them in the past few weeks versus, you know, we used to run 4 a year. And now like we ran 10 in the summer, and it's been like 20, right? No, but even if they suck, like, you know, even if they're small, they're still growing.
Oh yeah.
The number's gone from 0 or like 5 to like 20 in the past, including indoor, right? Yeah. So I'm like, that's a win to me. Yeah. Even if they suck. Yeah. But they're building, right? Yeah. And it's a process. So it's like, I don't know. I just don't think of it the same way as other people, I guess. But I'm truly baffled that they don't see that. But
yeah.
So that's what I mean, like in terms of a parent, like when you're trying to teach your kid something, if you can start modeling the idea that, okay, it doesn't matter about the result, you're growing as a person through all of this. That's just a metaphor for what you're doing, like, you know, or a vehicle through which you're developing.
I'm not gonna lie, it's really fun when I get to say that, especially to adults. Like last night, we just started another clinic, and then we were doing like they're about beginner intermediates, and something simple but very difficult is to just forearm pass the ball to yourself down the court. You know what I mean? So but having your feet planted, so you're like an actual pass, not
giving yourself some time to move under.
Yeah, give yourself some time, get there, get your feet planted, make the contact, read the trajectory, move again, right? And it's a physical, you need to move fast, get planted, get low, right? And it's very difficult. You know, this is a very difficult task for beginners.
So they were forearm passing it forward, getting underneath it, running, planting,
attempting
again
to.
Very difficult.
Yes, and then I had to, like 15 seconds in, I had a pause. I was like, everyone hold the balls, and then
you punished them with laps.
But that was exactly where I needed to say, and I did, like, process over results. Like everyone's getting frustrated that they're not, because I demonstrated. I'm like, don't try to do what I did, or like have it look like it's not going to be like that.
Yeah, your standard is too high.
Yeah, like focus on the things, because we had built it up, the footwork, the platform, and everything. I'm like, focus on those, and that's the victory. And then you lose control, just reset and start again, right?
In fairness, though, you had them do it for 6 hours straight, so
it was pretty funny, man. But then after that, it went from, like, because I was literally seeing people's frustration and like anger in their faces to then actually like a look of afterwards, once we got water, like of some satisfaction that they've like done something hard, and then it's good. Like, it's not like no one's mad at you for not doing it perfectly,
right?
You know what I mean? I just, because I was like a little worried. I'm like, no, the people are getting mad. So then I was like, process over results, and then it kind of changed everything, right?
Yeah, it's good. It takes the pressure off the result, and lets them understand that you're on the path to something here. And enjoy that, right? That's a good one too, because like I think it ties in with something you mentioned there, like, you know, people getting angry. I think another toxic thing that happens in teams is coaches. When a coach gets overly angry at accidents during gameplay or practice, I think what they're doing is they're teaching their team to play scared And then that team will talk about growth, right? Like you said off the top, that team will cease to grow because then those players are afraid to take risks. So there's a fear among the players. So coaches' reactions, whether it's an eye roll, yelling during the game at something, screaming at mistakes, that really, I've seen that. I've seen young players really like buckle up, tense up, look over at the coach like we always talk about, and they make more mistakes, not fewer. And then when the coach carries that anger into practice, you will get players who are afraid to go for it. They play timid, they play afraid. And that's another one of those moments that the team might go back to the change room and say, why is she screaming or he's screaming so much? And man, I'm terrified out there when I play. I'm afraid to mess up because I'll get benched, or get hooked right away. Coaches benching for the wrong reasons, yelling for the wrong reasons, getting angry at mistakes on the court is crazy, because then it just makes players play scared, and it just ensures that they'll make more mistakes because they're mentally now preoccupied with something that they shouldn't be. So that's another one that I found that just makes for a bad team culture, teams playing afraid.
The anger one is probably not, and especially in the situation where if the coach isn't actually like walking the walk.
Yeah.
Right, but even if they are, the anger thing probably isn't, because the best coach I had, they would sometimes like get pretty mad on the side of the court when we were just mentally checked out. Right, our attitude was not there.
Yeah, that's a little different. Like if you're like, remember, I had that moment when I told you where my kids were like goofing around on the beach, and mentally laughing, and so I was upset at the mindset stuff is a little bit different, I think. But when it's the skill of an error.
Yes.
That they're shanking or something, and you're like, come on, screaming at them. That's not going to make them pass better.
No.
And sometimes you might need to call the team over and tell them to relax a bit. You guys are playing too tense, right? Play loose. It's okay. It doesn't matter. And then watch the passing get better.
Yeah, intensity. That was always a tough thing.
It's a tough line between intensity and tense. But it's funny, the two words intense and tense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because tense is in the word intensity.
Yeah.
Intense.
Yeah.
Tense in. Intense. I can't emphasize that enough, I don't think.
It's kind of like what the split hop does. It like, loads the muscles, right? So you are tense in a way.
Yes.
But yeah, you want to be calm. It's just like whatever this flow state is. It's hyper ready, but also like not thinking, or however you describe it. What else do I have down here?
I am the wind.
I am the thought in the wind.
I am the walrus. The fart in the wind. Who has seen the wind? So
I think some things that the teammates can do together is probably like socializing together. Like when you're at like those big tournaments, you're playing, but then when you're off the courts, just try to be, for any of the players out there listening, just try to talk to all of your teammates, right? Don't try to be cliquey, and like this isn't high school. You're in an opportunity to experience sports, right? And take this opportunity. Oh, my voice again. Take this opportunity to talk with everyone, because it's not about popularity and stuff. You're here to win battles and
achieve a goal together.
Yeah, and like
it's very funny, eh?
Sports, to me, it's an analogy of like of hunting, or like even battle back in the day. I mean, the Olympics started off with all the sports were of weapon throwing. So the sports.
Wasn't it marathon? Marathon was the first.
No,
one,
like javelin toss and like.
I think the marathon was the first Olympic event.
No, it was like the crazy decathlon and like the chariot riding, which comes from war, and javelin toss and discus.
But isn't the
like,
marathon the first one? Isn't that why it's like marathon in Greece? Yeah.
Well, maybe, but that would have been one sport of it.
Yeah, you're right. The decathlon.
It's not like.
And they did it naked too. Footnote. Imagine sprinting naked. Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. As for me, that's like.
That's how you get it bigger. That's how you get it bigger. Right?
Inner thigh bruising.
I would like take.
Whoa!
Off.
Stop it! You can't say things like that. I just said inner thigh bruising.
Inner thigh.
For the running, pumping of the thighs. Okay, so anyway,
don't you tuck and run?
Well, I can't now. Like in ancient Greece, I can't. Anyway, so javelin.
Yeah, to me, sport is like a a modern reflection on war and hunting in a way, right? So these are things where you need to be a cohesive unit, right?
Yeah, literally we use those references like going to battle with someone, and I think
a spike point is called a kill.
Yeah,
like,
isn't that funny, eh?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Kill.
No, but but sports are that, right?
We're sort of figuring out that our whole lives
Wait a second.
very archaic sort of. Anyway, no, but I think that's a huge thing. Like,
a block or blocking the enemy's attack.
It's all very war related. Attack line, right?
Yeah.
The athlete. Yeah, when I see this too. Whenever I see an athlete playing that sort of like, cool kid in school garbage.
Yeah,
I just think that they're missing the point, right? And sometimes coaches foster that too, right? Because they have their own little clique with this, and it's like they never grew up, right? Like I just, again, rooted in what? It's a low self-esteem, right? It always goes back to low self-esteem. The confident people don't do that stuff because they don't feel the need to belittle others to make themselves feel good about themselves. So it's kind of a weird thing, but if you're a player who is like excluding other players on your team, just know that to anybody watching that or seeing that, they can clearly see that you don't like yourself. You are the insecure one, right? So just, again, work on things that build up your self-esteem, or just better yet, start accepting everybody. And then you'll realize that, that little insecure, terrified kid in you is in everybody. And, you just start to become more open and accepting of people and not so judgmental, and then the team becomes better. The culture of the team, people have more fun. They're not, again, worried about what you think about them.
Because if I'm thinking back at that age, I loved competing with the teammates that I was friends with, or I didn't have to be friends. A lot of these guys I'm thinking of, I didn't really hang out with them outside of volleyball in high school. At high school, we didn't even talk together that much. But then we went to club ball in the evening, and then we would compete like crazy. And it was the best thing ever. So we just had this mutual, just like, I don't know what to call it, but it was awesome. But the thing is that's difficult to have that feeling with a new teammate that I didn't know, but maybe like there was parts of the game I looked up to, and I wanted to have that connection with them. And I think a lot of the ways in which I fostered it was by competing with them, and then starting to see that smile on each other's face after you just ran lines or something, or like hitting a ball and then they say, giving you the low high five. Like it starts there with all of those little small gestures on the court, like positive feedback,
inclusivity.
Yeah. And like an encouragement, and like hustling together, and like actually acknowledging your body language, looking, eye contact, all those like little things. And then, as you're saying, if you are all like kind of connected in that way, you don't feel like you're in any way disconnected, or there's certain players on your team that you don't connect with. If you don't connect with them, you're not going to have that inter-competitive thing going on. And that's the best part, because that's how you're all going to come up together.
Yeah. And here's another great point too, because you touched on a few things there. Like, and I sort of have this philosophy when we're running programs too. Like I always say to our coaches, like, make sure the kids are exhausted, sweaty, and smiling when they leave every practice. Like, I always think that the teams that have this toxic, in team fighting or belittling of teammates, I still think there's that element of the coach isn't keeping that team busy enough, right? Like, if every practice you don't feel like you've gone through this real struggle together, and you're drenched in sweat and you're laughing and exhausted, like, there's no time for politics or drama on a team that is busy. That's what parents do, right? Like, parents keep their teenagers busy, and those teenagers end up pretty good because they're like too busy to get messed up in stupid crap.
Yeah.
And the coach is the same. Like, if you keep your practices intense and moving and exhausting and switching people around, putting them in situations where they have to depend on people they don't expect to depend on, and vice versa, then that leads to a great practice, and the kids are exhausted, sweaty, and smiling at the end of it. I think that's how you get rid of drama. And
you haven't even talked about the chemicals going on in their brain.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like, just working hard, sweating, you're all these like amazing, like neurotransmitters, whatever, endorphins, feel good drugs, basically. Serotonin, the drug responsible for making us feel included and like welcome and part of like a tribe and stuff.
Yep.
You're amping up all that stuff. Now all the barriers, like the ego is so diminished. It's in a much more less active state after a practice, that if there is a player, like say you're your son or daughter like doesn't talk to this one player, but likely after the end of a practice, they're going to be confident. They're not going to worry about any judgment. They'll just go and talk to them or something, or say, hey, great practice, or whatever.
Like my favorite thing is like when you force them onto a team together of threes or something, and then that player that they didn't like is the one who gets the kill or the hit that wins it or the serve, and then they're like high-fiving them. Yeah. Like that's a good thing, a practical thing for coaches, exhausting drills with new partners and goals of like first team to 5 and to punish the teams in a fun way if they lose. Like that's
I love doing the changing partners in practice for Pepper. Yeah. And then in whatever 2s, 3s composition like drills, it's so great.
My wife and I do that too. What? Sorry. Wrong show.
Hey, you didn't say her name this time.
Wrong podcast. Yeah.
Wrong.
But so no, if you're doing anyway. That's our standard joke. Anyway, so what were we saying? Yeah, so there's toxic. I think you can tire a team out. You can actually like I always thought that kids would spare time, have this infighting on their team, and a well-coached team that with a well-organized practice that's exhausting. Yeah, no time for that crap, and everybody leaves there with the happiness hormones, the dopamine, the endorphins are going, and then they've actually seen that player that they disrespected come through in the clutch, or like they're struggling with them like that. That's something else. Like a coach, like if you notice there's like a few players on your team that are on the outskirts, and there's like a cool kid that sort of is the one that sort of messes with that kid, put them together in a drill and make them stick with it, and just see what happens. Because like, yes, it can backfire. You have to be careful. You have to monitor, like if the kid's struggling and really low level skill or something like that and is always dropping the ball. But 9 times out of 10, if let's suppose you mix the partners up and then they have some success with better
backfires, players. You have things to say to that kid though.
Yeah, exactly. Like if that kid's acting more of a jerk, then you like call them aside, and then it's an opportunity to say, why don't you build them up? Watch how they play if you build them up versus tear them down. That's a great beach conversation, right? Like beach partners, like it's such a great sport because the one teammate might learn, like, listen, your reaction is going to make your partner play worse,
and you're going to make a mistake eventually.
Yeah, and is the goal here to win or not? Yeah. If the goal is here to win, then all of our reactions are going to affect our ability to win, either positively or negatively. Your choice. So if you want to roll your eyes and be a jerk as a coach, as a parent, as a player, then that's probably going to hurt your team a lot. And versus if you're positive with that teammate, like, come on, let's go, you got this, or we can do this, or next one, don't worry about it. That's going to make them play better. There's not, I think in life, right, if volleyball is a metaphor for life, then don't we all want to be supported when times are rough? Yeah. Right? Like, does anybody want someone to go, you are a bit of a, you kind of deserve this, Nobody wants to hear that. Like, you're kind of a jerk.
That one comment.
Like something rough happens, you're like, well, karma chameleon.
Well, that would be that. Yeah, exactly. That would be
versus karma. Like, hey, you know what? I believe in you, and I think you can pull through this. That's a little nicer than maybe.
What was that one Olympics though, where we were watching in Beach 2's women's, and then they had to call the timeout, and we could hear the conversation. Oh boy, and it was like she just missed her serve, and she's like, I believe in you. You could do this." And it was like clearly not genuine. There was a lot of
and that
tension behind those words.
And what it was the team broke up after this. Yeah. And the original was the audio was like, can you, so the first thing was like the player swore at the other player, like, can you effing get your serve over?
Oh, that's how it started.
And then like just something like silence. You just gotta get your effing serve over. Yeah. And then there was silence from the other team. And this is all being picked up on live TV. Yeah. And then the player like understood that she was being too harsh. So then she said, I believe in you. She tried to turn her anger into a supportive talk, but it was too late.
Yeah.
And the player continued to struggle, and
the problem wasn't there in the game. The problem was already before the game.
Yes,
and,
there was a team.
We're just seeing it.
Yeah, that's a symptom of a deeper issue that predated that one match. But
and both are great athletes. They just didn't work that well together.
Yes,
and they're both doing very well right now on different teams.
Yes, yeah, the mindset. So, you knew there was a mindset inconsistency on that beach team when they were sort of paired together by the mission, and they parted ways, and it worked out for the best, I think, for both of them. But it's just that supportive, genuinely supportive personality. I mean, like we said, like that player was probably justified in their anger because
I think
it was an alarming number of missed serves. But it really it really matters who you're talking to, and again, it predates, like, the reason why that player was probably missing their serves was because there was a history of a little bit of like pushing and maybe negative vibe from the teammate, right? It's tricky when you're playing with mismatched personalities,
especially in beach, it comes out.
Especially in beach. That's why it's such a good mental exercise. Like if you want to talk about mental training, just play beach, the idea of team chemistry, attitude, encouragement, positivity, strength, mental training, the exhaustion of it, messing up in the heat and sand is like a semi-torture, for an athlete, and then you got to go do it again. It's just it's a real grind. So, but anything else on your list of toxic like positive team culture? I think we got parents doing things, we got players, their reactions matter, coaches' reactions.
I think the only thing I just had was regarding accountability, and maybe we're more afraid of calling a friend or a teammate out on something. Or a parent calling their kid out on something, which, we kind of got into the confidence and insecurity. Yeah. So, because I think that's something.
I think accountability ties in with that consistency of rules.
In with the rules. Yeah.
Right. Because
I think so.
Coaches holding themselves and their players accountable for things is very cool. I like it when coaches yes, there's a difference between a coach and players. I think there is, like, the coach has a different life, but it is kind of fun when a coach is like, oh, I was late for practice and I'm gonna take on the punishment, even though I have a life and I might have other obligations, but I am part of this team, and I think that's cool too. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. Sometimes I like the fact that when a coach asserts themselves as a little apart from the team, because they're not buddy, so that's important. Yeah. But at the same time, there is that whole, like, I don't know if a coach needs to punish themselves, but it's kind of funny to do. Like, kids like it. Yeah. I like it when coaches say things like, I'll shave my head if we don't, do something. Hopefully they don't base it on a win or a loss, but if they base it on something, they can. It's fun, right, in some moments. But again, you're reinforcing the idea that the victory is, like, it'd be cool if it was based on a skill. Like, if we can do X well tomorrow night, because then the win might take care of itself anyway, right? So it'd be good to teach the players that difference. But
if we can spin serve well or something.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think one thing, to build a good team culture, we talked about it a little bit, like the drills idea, like your practices, man, if they can be like a lot of like goal based, exhausting sort of I love Kings and Queens core. Yeah. Like, I think that's such a good game with a goal. If there's a goal, like first team to 10 wins or whatever, I think if you finish every practice with that, I think that's the best team bonding. I always think it's funny when people talk about team bonding ideas for volleyball teams, because I'm like, that most corporations will have their staff come up to play volleyball as the team bonding. Yeah. Like when they go, let's go treetop trekking, I'm like, why don't you just play a volleyball tournament with twos or something? And that's the ultimate team bonding experience, I think, is the sport itself, right? But I get it. I mean, if you want to change it up or something, or see each other in a different light, like, what do you call those lockaway rooms? What do you call them again? Oh, what do they call them? Escape rooms.
There we go. I was like, breakaway? No, that's like at a conference in the breakout rooms. Or
yeah, breakout rooms, yeah. But escape rooms and stuff could be fun, problem solving, see people in a different light, I guess. But I still think that the game is what it takes, and that's how you can really build a positive team culture. Because sometimes when you take it off the court, you're getting into an area where it's easier to be a bully or easier to be a down talking, how the kids dress. Some kid could be dressed cool off the court at the team party or something, or one kid drinks or something and another kid doesn't drink and stuff like that. Not that kids should drink, but I'm just saying, you know what I mean?
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about, like, if you take these team building exercises off the court, it just opens up a whole other world of like bullying type things that can happen. Whereas the sports kind of like we talked about, it
I
can
don't think you need
exhaust.
to.
Yeah, it exhausts a kid and puts them in their element, and releases the hormones that gets them less self-conscious.
Yeah.
So, can you think of what are some other things coaches can do, or parents or players, to make the thing, like we talked about a lot of what not to do's. Can you think of some of the best things that made you, like your team, have a good vibe?
Well, yeah. So
supportive teammates is a huge one.
It was pretty cool on the one varsity team I played on. It was one of the guys who wasn't a starter, right? But he loved volleyball. He actually went on to become like a TSN broadcaster. He just loved sports.
Really?
Yeah, and he was, I think he was like our fourth setter.
Oh wow!
But he was, and this is kind of unique to him, to his personality. So like preseason training, this guy, like, we had to go run basically around the city, like way too many kilometers, but he always led the run, right? And he always led a whole bunch of these like physical activities, or like, so he was kind of like an amp up guy on our team.
Energy guy, I was gonna say,
yeah, but he wasn't a starter, right? And he knew it, and he took this role on, but he always like grinded it out whenever he was on. So whenever we did like starters versus bench or whatever, and then you mix up like it didn't matter what the drill was, this guy was always gonna come at you.
That's cool,
right? So having like a pit bull on the team, we had this excellent like inter competition where starting positions weren't always locked in. Right. Cool. And this fostered it really well. And he thrived in this. Right. And then, so something like that is just, it was really neat experience when I first got there. And then it was like training camp. And then we just like ran for kilometers. And then we do all this other physical stuff. But I had this guy in particular. Yeah. And then there was other guys actually who weren't starters, but they're just amazing attitude.
Some role there.
And they push, and like I couldn't not do this to let him down. Even though he's not a starter, I can't let him down.
That's interesting.
You know what I mean?
That's cool.
It
sounds like you're talking about, like, it's almost like your coach actually put people on the team who had those qualities in the first place, right?
And put them in that role.
Yeah, right. Like bringing, like, that's an interesting one. Don't think coaches do enough, is selecting people who are energy people. And if they're not starters, they can still be leaders on the team. And you hear about this in pro sports all the time, right? There's guys who are on pro sports teams, no matter football, hockey, soccer, basketball, who are energy guys, and they aren't going to get a lot of minutes, but they're valuable to the team. Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? Assigning roles to players, keeping
your eyes open for other like skills,
other strengths, and having them lead in that's pretty cool. That's a tricky one that's a good, was that where was that?
That was at Ryerson.
That's what I was thinking, because that's I didn't think it was a trip.
And what they did was amazing for what the team achieved, you know, like, and that was such a cohesive unit. The whole team, I can't imagine. There wasn't any infighting at all. So,
and it'd be cool to see, like, I'll bet you any money that coach probably took that player over someone more skilled, I think, in volleyball.
Interesting.
Like, you know what I mean? I guarantee you they did, because that sounds like someone who knows what they're doing. Like, so that's sort of like this idea of what we see. Like, you know, that means that was a coach who saw some character. And put them on the team, like a fourth setter. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of teams wouldn't even have a fourth setter, right?
I think it was fourth.
Yeah, because you're probably were you running a 6'2" back then? Might have been. No, you're running 5'1".
5'1",
yeah, of course you would be. What I'm talking about.
Yeah, we had Snake as our right
side.
side.
Yeah, I forgot. You're not as old as me. Aren't you older than me?
And then the other thing,
that's right. That's right.
We had the best hitter.
Yeah, best lefty. Yeah.
So we would get into other drills, like,
and they didn't make him set.
Right. Can you imagine?
No overpasses. No, sorry.
Just like the Kings of Queens Court. I think I mentioned this before, but like my favorite thing was like 3-on-3 back row, because it somewhat evened the playing field somewhat. We had like this guy who was like 6'9" lefty, like obviously could hit C balls like at the attack line, but you put him on a team with two other people, and it kind of evens it out a little bit, right? So we could get into these like grind matches where, again, it would be points based, and the team that wins, maybe it's like three bench guys on that team or something, or two bench guys and and a rookie or something, just because you can still get the ball up. It kind of gives more equal opportunity or more fairness, right? And you can just like have some really like great battles that way. And those were some of the most fun practices I had.
And you remember them to this day, right?
Yeah. So and cool. I do remember, like, I do remember the growing pains. I remember like my first few months there, like I was awful and I was nervous.
Same with me. Yeah.
But like I went back to practice every day and like I got my injuries worked on and like I kept playing and then I got better. And no one ever, I mean, older players were a little cold to me.
Yep. Same with me.
Right.
Yep.
That is what it is. And then but I was already used to that, I think, because I had the opportunity in club to play up. And I've seen the cold shoulder and I get it. But it's like, whatever. I was invited here for a reason. So I'm gonna do that thing or whatever that got me here, and then we'll go from there.
And those are insecure older players. You know, they were also looking back, right? In your mind, in your mind's memory, they were old, but really they were only like 19. So
no, these are
20.
They were all 23 plus, and then there
but
was still.
Oh yeah, still insecure like that. You don't give someone the cold shoulder unless you're insecure. Like even like I was talking today with someone about my.
Sorry, I shouldn't say cold shoulder, but it was more just like, who are you? Like we're yet to see.
But there's in group, out group, and I had that. Like I was just talking about that today with my captain, my 24-year-old captain. When I was first year, I was 17, right, and a time where everybody else was 19. And like he used to make fun of me all the time about how skinny I was. Yeah, yes, how skinny I was, and how
you're skinny.
I was skinny. Yes, yeah. I basically
you were blonde hair.
I actually I was blonde and skinny. Actually, the only thing I got stung by a bee and it never went away. So it's just like this is all an allergic reaction. Yeah. It's true. And the more I eat, the more it brings out the inflammation. Yes, it's a donut reaction. I don't even like donuts. It's actually muscle turned to fat. But anyway, quit body shaming me.
You can turn it back.
Yeah, I have dysmorphia the other way, where I think it looks amazing. Anyway,
the other way.
The other way. I have promorphia. That's the medical term. No, but the idea is that, like, you know, my captain was 24 and he was like so mean to me. But in fairness, he was very praiseworthy of me when I did do good things. He was like the happiest guy to see me do stuff. Like,
cool.
I told you that moment where where I got my first like real crank. I remember, and then he was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah, he was like praising. So I felt really good, and I remembered it because of the verbal abuse before. but I do look back and I do say I do know that he was obviously an insecure guy. Because you wouldn't crap on your teammates for every mistake unless
you're not a rookie.
And especially when there's like 7 years older than me. When I think, like, somebody said that to me, I was talking about it, and they were like, "Oh my god, he was 7 years older than you." I never even really thought of that. I was like, "Oh yeah, he was 7 years older than me." That was quite a bit. But it's a powerful thing, right? Like with a teammate, if they're confident. And again, I don't think our coach was very great at making sure that our practices were like, you know, super intense and there was no time for like crapping on people or, but it was, I mean, you know, I had a great time in varsity sports, and a lot of that was because the teammates were supportive. I do remember the older guys that were really supportive. And, so yeah, I don't know what the point of that was, but what started that?
You feel supported.
You said,
it was just about on the unique team where we had like the energy guy.
Right. Yeah.
And the experience of like being a rookie and being given that opportunity and just, like not being crapped on or whatever. Yeah. Right. And then I was able to do my thing and then be able to contribute. Right. I could be on the court and then no one would be worrying. It's like, oh, Eric's on the court. Like, we got an issue. No, it was like I was on the court.
Something must have
for a reason. Right?
Yes, that's a good point.
It took a while, but got to that point.
That's what it was. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, the idea of a team like that, where I love the fact that. Do you think your coach? I wonder, like, you know, putting on a fitness guy or like that. That's an interesting thing, you know, because it. And
it's a funny thing. This guy, he was an energy guy, but he wasn't exactly a fitness guy. He had like a little bit of a beer gut.
Yeah.
Well, not a beer. It was just like
he's just a heavy, stocky guy.
Yeah, he was more like a rugby player type build.
When did you start body shaming everybody? I don't understand.
You know what else? This team that worked really well. They went to a game. They're playing like the number 2 team because we were the number 1. And then the starters ended up playing because they're out the night before partying, doing whatever.
Right.
Play an awful first set.
Yep.
Right. And here's the opportunity comes along. Bench and rookies got to go in, and we go in.
See, that's an awesome coach.
Yeah. And we start to shut him down. We win the second set. What does he do? Leaves us in for the third.
Nice.
Right? And then the good thing is that the other guys, they're up and they're cheering for us. They're not like
that's
heads down.
And
Like,
see, that's a good coach.
yeah,
The coach causes that, right?
yeah.
Because the coach will nip that crap in the bud or show them that they need to be supportive.
And he did it quite like you know this coach. He was never one to be outbursts of anger. Like, he's just like, first set ended, we lost. Puts the thing in. This is who he just quietly and calmly does it. This is who's going in.
Yep.
This is what we're gonna. He just moves on, right?
And everybody knows.
Everyone
why.
knows. Yeah.
Why, yep.
Yeah. And then everyone knew. Everyone knew what they had done wrong. But it's also like, this is a sport of volleyball where the mistake, the you lose the point, you move on.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going on to the second set, and then sure enough, and then I think it went to. Well, yeah, it went into the fourth. We won in the fourth, and it was a mixture of some of the bench and starters, and I think, and then they closed it out, and it was like, then we partied that night because it was such a huge win,
a huge team win,
Yeah,
and guys who didn't get to typically lead come through in the clutch. Their confidence goes through the roof, and the right message is sent to the starters who didn't do their job. But he still gave them a chance to come in and prove themselves, I'm sure, and he would have subbed out people that still didn't have it, kept in the starters who had it. That's how you coach, right? Like, that is just like the ultimate in meritocracy. And
it felt so good, man.
Yeah,
it felt like so good for.
And most coaches today, like a lot of coaches today, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of coaches today would have rode those starters and just flipped out at them. And then the bench feels bad because they didn't get to play. The starters feel bad because they're getting reamed. And the coach is powerless because they did nothing. Versus a coach that even if he lost that match or even if he lost with the bench, at least everybody in that room would have, like, the bench feels good because they got a chance.
Yeah.
The coach doesn't need to freak out because he did the right thing that we talked about earlier, and the starters learn the lesson, and that whole team improves even if they lost, because everybody walks away with the right feelings out of that match. Like, the starters let people down by partying.
Yeah.
The bench got their fair shot because the starters went out, and the coach did the right thing. Everybody leaves that gym knowing what should have happened, versus the other way where it's just like watching something fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Everything wrong gets compounded by another wrong decision, wrong decision.
It's probably important, like, how you rebound after that, like what your next practice is like, I would think.
If you lost?
Yeah, if you lost, right?
Yes, the discussion.
For sure, the people who made the error, like, they should be feeling it, and they will be, and hopefully you don't have anyone pointing the finger at anyone else. It's like, or maybe a little bit of that, like, but then you get on, like, and I think this is where the physical aspect of the sport is so good. You can have some of that blame game, but then you get out on the court and you're working hard, and he definitely made us work hard, right? So you're out, you're sweating, and then it's forgotten about, and you move on.
Yeah, I think the key is, like, in the follow up for something like that. If there's any coach listening to this, or parent or player, like, I think the focus is always on what's next. Like, so if you are having that practice, and you're like, okay, so what happened that match? And you ask people, well, we went out and partied too hard. We sort of let the team down. And the bench says, yeah, we came in. Maybe we didn't perform as well as we could have, but we haven't had the chance. But see, if the coach gives the bench a lot of chances, then they probably do perform. But the key is like, you don't just point fingers. People accept their role. Right? And then you talk about, and how can we avoid it? Yeah. And then
you move on.
Yeah. And that's where then the team gets to police each other a little bit in the right way, where, like, people are, like, going to go out and party the night before. Like, no, listen, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah.
Remember that talk we had in practice? And odds are everybody will, like, they're athletes at that point. And that's where you, as a coach, are a teacher, not just a coach. That's why I remember we were talking with Hugh McCutcheon a few episodes back. And, that idea that coaches need to think of themselves as teachers, because you're teaching life skills here, right? Like, it's irrelevant what happened on the volleyball court. You want those young men or women to understand that their actions have consequences, and that if they work hard, they will be rewarded. Like, these are universal laws, right? That you want athletes to take from sport. So I think that's how you create a positive team culture. You just think of those universal laws, those things that, people should be doing and should be gaining from life. The lessons you want them to learn in life are how you should coach the team. Yeah. Right? Think of those universal things that everybody needs to learn in life, those good rules for living a life, and then you coach that way. Right?
So if you're not culturing good team culture,
stop it.
I was just waiting for you to stop talking. So
sorry. Yeah. So you weren't even listening.
Why?
What is that? All right. Okay, everybody. Well, that's an hour and 20 minutes. So that was a pretty longer episode than we thought, but we hope you enjoyed it. Episode number 53. And we will see you next time on Volleybalogy.
Oh.
See ya.
What was that song?
What's the big idea?